So one of the things I like to do most is eat nuts. I eat nuts every day, so I thought I'd make a video about my love for nuts. This is the nut tier list. Okay then, let's get going. Well, we start off with the almond, and this is a very strong start. I mean, almonds, I love almonds. I'm actually tempted to just go right ahead and put the almond in the S tier. Almonds, they're crunchy, they are sweet. They're sweet enough that you can just have a handful of almonds alone as a dessert. I mean, that's a dessert in its own right. They've got all sorts of culinary uses. Almond milk is definitely the best of all of the non-dairy milks. Plus, they are the central ingredient in the greatest of all chocolates, the Toblerone. I mean, yeah, very strong start there with the almond. Ah, Brazil, where hearts were entertaining June, we stood beneath an amber moon and softly murmured, "Someday soon." We kissed and clung together. Brazil nuts, Brazil nuts. Another very strong entry here. So Brazil nuts, there's enough selenium in Brazil nuts to kill, in a handful of Brazil nuts to kill people. Brazil nuts are extremely high in selenium. It's very easy to receive a toxic amount of selenium if you eat them. You're recommended to eat no more than 3 Brazil nuts per day. That's how high the selenium is. So Brazil nuts are like, they're exotic and deadly. And they've got sexy curves. They're like the femme fatale supervillain of nuts. And most importantly, I mean, they have a lovely crunch to them. They've got a very subtle flavour. And of course, because you can only eat 3, you're always left wanting more. So I mean, this is, man, I love Brazil nuts too. I kind of want to say that they are just as good as almonds. I worry that there's going to be a lot of S tier nuts. Maybe I should bump, because I think I like Brazil nuts more than almonds. So I'm bumping those down to A tier, yeah, because I don't want to put everything in the S tier. All right, what we got next? Okay, so cashews. Yeah, cashews. I like cashews. They've certainly got a really lovely creamy texture, but I don't know, that to me there's nothing that special about a cashew. I mean, like, they're fine. I mean, they're very nice, but they're kind of like the sort of poor man's macadamia nut. Like, if you're going to go for a creamy nut, the macadamia is better. But the macadamia is way more expensive, so yeah, obviously go with the cashew instead. But no, I mean, look, we're ranking them, we're not buying them. Chestnuts. Yeah, I don't know what the hell's going on with a chestnut. Look, I can't deny that chestnuts are delicious, and yes, they are festive and Christmassy, and they taste really good and all that. But when I eat a nut, I want fat, right? Chestnuts do not provide that. Chestnuts are basically just a vegetable, so I'm not really sure what they're doing on this list. Okay, oh, okay. So coconuts. Yeah. Well, I mean, I just said I didn't know what coconuts were doing, what chestnuts were doing on the list. Now we have coconuts, which are. So here's the thing with a coconut. I mean, first of all, coconuts are incredibly inconvenient. I mean, I think that they're probably the worst of all of the nuts on this list in terms of just accessing the parts that you can eat. Like, breaking open a coconut is a real hassle, and then once you break it open, it's also a real hassle to, like, tear the flesh away from the bark. Is it bark? I don't whatever that stuff is. Um, Whatever the hard shell is of the coconut. Yeah. But it's like, okay, so yeah, it's really inconvenient to get into it, and then once you're in it, I mean, if you're looking to eat a nut, like, why would you go for a coconut? Do you know what I mean? It's massive. It has, like, the white flesh. It's full of fluid. I mean, there's something really kind of experimental going on here. This is like the Karl-Heinz Stockhausen of nuts. I mean, it's not every day that you can drink a nut. And I love drinking nut. I mean, coconut is great. It's really tasty, and it's certainly very unique as far as the nuts go. But it's it's hard to get into. It's got this inconvenience to it. It's got a sharp edge to it, I think. So I'm going to put it in C tier. Yeah, I think that's about right. Okay then. um, hazelnuts. You know what? This is another C tier for me. The hazelnut. I like them more than. Yeah, I'm going to put them above cashews. I think the hazelnut is just about the most generic nut that there is. I mean, in many ways, it's kind of like the platonic form of a nut to me. It's like, well, like when you think of nut, like a nut, when you think of the prototypical nut, I think of hazelnut. Actually, you know what? This is better than C, so I'm putting it in B tier. Yeah, I mean, for one thing, it's the only one on this list that's actually a true nut, as opposed to a drupe or a seedle or a goom or whatever. It's inoffensive. You can eat a lot of them. It's fun to shove a bunch of them into my cheeks so that I feel like a squirrel. Yeah, I do like hazelnuts, but it's just there's nothing particularly special about them. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, they're really good, but I guess not absolutely great. All right, then. Well, macadamia nuts. Okay, so these are fantastic. I mean, I think that definitely A tier. The texture of a macadamia nut is it's such an unusual thing because it's creamy and buttery, but also at the same time it still has the distinctive crunchiness of a nut. Um, so it's got this a really strange sort of texture to it, I think. And a quite a distinctive taste as well. But they are very rich. I mean, I couldn't eat more than a few at a time, and unfortunately, they are very expensive where I am as well. But for me, a macadamia nut, it's so indulgent. I think that of all of the nuts, like if I'm just eating a nut on its own, a macadamia nut feels like the most indulgent. It feels like it feels like it should be bad for me. Like that's how it tastes. It tastes like it should be bad for me, but I'm pretty sure it isn't. I'm pretty sure that all these nuts are healthy. Well, except maybe coconut, because I guess the standard consensus these days is you should be reducing your saturated fat, and coconut's mostly saturated fat. So if you believe that, I guess coconut's not so healthy. But anyway, no. The point is macadamia nuts. I think it's perfectly fine to have a handful of macadamia nuts, but it feels like it shouldn't be. Very indulgent. I love them. Okay then. Peanuts. Yeah, peanuts make me think of pubs and beer and football and fat old men called Barry who voted for Brexit. So speaking as a woke lefty elitist, bleeding heart, feels over reals, gender neutral, non-binary, postmodern cultural neo-Marxist, fuck the peanut. It goes in E tier. I hate them. Okay then, pecan nuts. Well, this one has got to be this has got to be an S. Um, Man, I love pecan nuts. Buttery, like slightly sweet, a soft texture but a slight crunch. I mean, God, I can just devour handfuls of these. It's dangerous for me to be around pecan nuts. I eat too many of them. But yeah, I just can't think of. I love I love it when you like bite into them and the you can kind of it doesn't just crunch. There is a bit of crunchy, but like when you bite into a pecan nut, it's kind of soft and it like compresses. It's a lovely texture. Yeah. So and of course, they have lots of really good kind of culinary uses as well. I mean, when people do things like the pecan pies, and that's a thing, isn't it? I'm sure, or cake or something like that. I know I've eaten other desserts that use pecans, and it always tastes really good. Um, okay, pine nut. I think I'm going to have to put pine nuts in the D tier here. Um, they are they taste nice enough, I suppose, but they're so small that they're more like seeds. They don't satisfy the sort of nut urge. It's kind of the same problem as chestnuts in a way. It's like if you're in the mood for a nut, I personally wouldn't go for a pine nut. It's like when I eat nuts, I want to be able to eat like the whole thing. Whereas with a pine nut, yes, you eat the whole thing, but you have to eat like a handful of them. You have to eat several at once because they're so small. It doesn't quite do it for me. Okay, pistachios. Uh, yeah, I mean, I love the distinctive taste I love the greenish colouring. They miss out on the A tier for me because they're just such a headache to actually get into. And at least where I live, all the shops where I live, they don't sell shelled pistachios, so I have to break them open myself, and it's kind of, I mean, it's kind of annoying. It's especially annoying, like sometimes you'll get a shelled pistachio where like the shell is completely shut, and so there's nothing, you can't even, you know, it's not even partially open so that you can get some leverage in it. You know, you have to just smash it open. And then if you try to smash it open, that always smashes the pistachio inside. So I really like them, but because of the inconvenience, they just get shunted down a tier, I'm afraid. Okay, and you know what? We have saved the best for last because we end on the walnut, and the walnut is for me the ultimate number one S tier nut. I eat walnuts every single day. I love the texture. I love the subtle taste. The subtle there's a subtle bitterness to walnuts that, you know, kind of gives them a bit of an edge. I think it's, you know, it's not all plain sailing, right? Like they've got it's subtle, right? But there's something a little bit almost dangerous, like that bitterness taste. I love that, and the appearance, the way that there's like these two halves with the folds. It kind of looks like a dried, shrunken brain, and they're really filling. I mean, I can eat just like a handful of walnuts and I'll be satiated for hours. So yeah, I think that and so there we go. That's my list. That's my tier list of the nuts. Yeah, I think that's about right. You know, I maybe I would push Brazil nuts up to the S tier. But no, I'm going to keep it as it is. I'm happy with that. We have to be selective, right? We don't want to be too generous with the S tier. So there we go then. Thanks for watching. You know, I will see you in the next video. I know this was a little bit of a different one, but hopefully, you know, you got something out of that. Let me know what you think of nuts. How do you rank the nuts? I'm curious to hear how it works for you guys. All right, see you later.